Hello viewers, my name is Jingo David. You're welcome for this lesson. This is A-level biology and the topic which we are starting today is chemicals of life. The topic is chemicals of life. And now this is yet another very important topic in biology and lays the foundation for very many other topics. So you need to understand it so much in order to be able to be better positioned to understand other topics. So I'm repeating, it is one of the most important topics because it has the content which is applied in other topics of biology. So it means that once you understand it, it will be very easy for you to understand the topics we are here to look at ahead. It has even an application in the topic of cytology. Every topic of biology will require some knowledge of chemicals of life. Because in biology is the study of life, so what drives the life are these chemical substances. So we can maybe first understand what chemicals of life are, and then you will see how they are vital in in all organisms. And in every topic of biology, we shall be referring to them. Now, chemicals of life, these are chemical substances that maintain the life of an organism. That the chemical substances that are needed by an organism to maintain its life. So, for example, if you look at an organism like me, there are some chemical substances that I need in order to maintain my life, implying that in case I become deficient of those chemical substances, my life will deviate from being normal. My life will not be able to be maintained in its normal situation, and that one can result in sicknesses and even to death in case most of the vital chemical substances are not provided to the body or are not available for the body. So I can first write for you that chemicals of life are chemical substances are usually compounds. Most of them are compounds. Usually compounds. Most of them are usually compounds. That are needed by an organism to maintain its life, either to maintain or sustain its life. So it means that these are the chemical substances that keep the organism alive. They keep the organism alive. They keep the organism alive. Meaning that in case, it means that you can't be alive without this organism, without these chemical substances. You can't be alive without these chemical substances. And because of that, the secret of life is in these chemical substances. The secret of life is in the chemicals of life. Is in the chemicals of life. So in order to understand what real life is, it is very important for us to understand what these chemicals are, because they are the ones that make up the life of an organism. So they have the secret of life. And we can further understand what it means to sustain or to maintain life. Sustaining or maintaining life. Sustaining life. Sustaining life or maintaining life. Sustaining life or maintaining life. Remember that we are still looking just at the introduction of chemicals of life. I want you to understand this introduction very well so that you can understand the details of the whole topic. Now, we have started with the definition. Now, in the definition I'm picking up, because we have seen that these are chemical substances, chemistry has already defined for you chemical substances that are needed by an organism. An organism or by organisms. Okay, let me say by an organism. So we are already aware of what chemical substances are in chemistry. Now, here also we are aware that an organism is any living thing. Any living thing. Anything which has life. Anything which has life. Anything which has life is an organism. Now, that organism requires these chemical substances to sustain or maintain its what? Life. What does it mean to sustain life or to maintain life? Sustaining or maintaining life requires certain metabolic chemical substances, or which we call metabolites. It requires metabolites. Requires what we call metabolites. Metabolites, these are reactants. Reactants that are required for metabolic reactions. Required for metabolic reactions. Metabolic reactions, those are chemical reactions that take place in the body of an organism. Now, the metabolic reactions that take place in the body of an organism require reactants. Just as you are aware from chemistry, we are told that every chemical reaction requires reactants. Reactants, for example, you can have a reactant A reacting with another reactant B to form a product C. So these are the reactants. These are the reactants, and then this is the what? The product. So the body may be interested in forming a particular product, but the only way it can form that product is by having the reactants. So sustaining life requires metabolites, and those are the reactants. So you shall realize that these metabolites are chemicals of what? Are chemicals of life. So it means that some chemicals of life are used as metabolites. So that's why the body cannot carry out any metabolic reactions without having the chemicals of life, without having the metabolites. Then other requirements for sustaining life, they include the controllers of metabolic reactions. The controllers of metabolic reactions. We have the controllers of metabolic reactions. These ones, I am going to categorize them into two. We have those that speed up. We have those that catalyze metabolic reactions. We have those that stimulate metabolic reactions, and we have those that inhibit metabolic what? Reactions. Now, the controllers, I'm categorized them into three. I'm categorizing their effects into 3, but they are basically of 2 types. They are basically of 2 types. You have what you call enzymes, and then we have what you call hormones. Hormones. So these ones, their main role is to control the metabolic reactions. So metabolic reactions can either be catalyzed, that's they can be speeded up. Catalyzing means to speed up. Speeding up. Speeding up. Then to stimulate, it means to make something to happen. To initiate the happening of something, that is to stimulate. For example, in case I cane you and you are hurt, I can stimulate you to cry. Then to inhibit is to stop something from taking place, to oppose the taking place of something. For example, if a baby is crying, I can present a sweet, and the sweet is put in the mouth in order for the baby now to concentrate on the taking of the sweet rather than crying. So it means that I will have inhibited the crying of the baby. Now, both stimulating and inhibiting is carried out by hormones. And if you look at these hormones, these enzymes, most of them are proteins in nature. And the enzymes, some of them are proteins and others are lipids. Others are lipids. So we are going to realize that these proteins, lipids, specifically enzymes and hormones, are the controllers of metabolites, and they are also chemicals of what? Life. Are also chemicals of life. So sustaining life requires the metabolites and also requires these substances that are supposed to control the metabolic what? Reactions. Actually, stimulating and inhibiting, these two can be referred to as regulating. So regulating. So it means that the hormones regulate the metabolic reactions, while enzymes catalyze metabolic what? Reactions. For example, a certain metabolic reaction may be taking place at a slower speed than the body requires it. So enzymes have to come in to speed it up. Then hormones, for them, they just regulate by either stimulating or inhibiting. So those are the controllers, and they are chemicals of what? Life. I'm trying to show you how it is relevant for us to have these chemicals in our bodies, because there is no way you can live without having certain metabolic reactions taking place in the body. You can't live. So that's why you need the metabolic reactants to allow those chemical reactions to take place, and you need these controllers. Then another important thing we need to sustain life is structures. We need certain structures. We need the formation of structures. We need the formation of structures. More so during the process of growth, we need certain structures to be formed. And these structures are formed from these chemical what? Substances. So chemicals of the substances for formation of these structures are obtained, chemicals of life. Ig cell membranes. If you look at the cell membrane is formed, it is a structure which is formed from proteins, lipids, among other components. These are the two main components, but we shall find it having more other components like glycoproteins, phospholipids, cholesterol, but you can really see that to form a structure, you need certain chemicals. So you can see that there is nothing which the body can achieve. There is nothing which an organism can achieve as far as maintaining its life without utilizing the chemicals of what? Life. So from this summary, we can really see that the proteins, lipids are representing particular chemicals of life. And another thing which I want to inform you is that we need also the medium for chemical reactions, the medium for metabolic reactions. We shall see that the medium for metabolic reactions is usually water. Is usually what? Water. Metabolic reactions usually take place in water. Why? Because most of them occur in aqueous state. So any metabolite, it has first be dissolved in water in order to be converted into an aqueous solution, and then that's when it can have its corresponding species being able to react, just as we shall see in the details in other topics. Then sometimes also transportation of certain materials from one part to another of the body, to another part of the body requires also what? Water. So now I've shown you that maintaining life requires these chemical substances, and that's why they are very vital in an organism in order to maintain its what? Life. Now I can also inform you that the body of an organism can make most of these chemical substances, or it can import most of them, others from the what? Actually, it can only make a few. Most of them are just obtained from the environment by the organism. But we can understand that these chemical substances that are maintaining life are specifically known as nutrients. When I write the word nutrients, you can understand the point which I first said. If you look at the nutrients, that is the term which refers to the chemical substances that maintain the life of an organism. The chemical substances that maintain the life of an organism are specifically called nutrients, and they're the ones that belong to this category of chemicals of life. Actually, the nutrients are chemicals of life. They are chemicals of life. Now, these nutrients, most of them are obtained from the external environment of the organism. They are obtained from the external environment of the organism. And very few are synthesized in the body of the organism. So, most of the chemicals of life are synthesized, very few are synthesized by the organism itself, and the majority are obtained from the external environment. But even those that are synthesized within the organism, their raw materials, the raw materials of their synthesis are still obtained from the external environment. From the external environment. For example, if you look at the plants are able to make their own food, meaning that the food contains the nutrients. By the way, you need also to understand the difference between food and nutrients. Food and nutrients. Because most of these chemicals of life are obtained by the organism in form of nutrients, in form of the nutrients that are in the food which is usually eaten. Food, by definition, is anything which is eaten to sustain life. Anything eaten to sustain, anything taken in by an organism to sustain life is food. Now that food, it has two parts, two main components of food. There is a part of food which is actually needed for maintaining life, and the other part which is not needed for maintaining life. For example, even when you look at when you are preparing food, there are certainly, like when you are preparing matoke, you remove the cover, the peelings. So it means that the peelings are not so much needed. There is something inside the matoke which is needed, and that is that component of the food which is actually needed to maintain life is what you call a nutrient. So if you want to know how the body obtains the chemicals of life, whenever you eat food, you are obtaining the chemicals of life from the external environment. Even the plants that make their own food, They obtain the raw materials for making the food from the environment, that is carbon dioxide and water. So this is still the introduction of chemicals of life, and you follow in the next video to understand more about the introduction. I'm still looking at the introduction of chemicals of life so that you can understand the basic requirements of the topic. See you in the next lesson.